Hello, me again. Um, this time I want to talk about the idea that witchcraft is a religion and a sacred priesthood. Now, I get that this might be relative within certain modern traditions, but this isn't typical amongst older witchcraft traditions. In fact, it was witches that people went to if they knew the priest wouldn't do what they needed them to or wanted them to. Um, so you have that, and they would also go to the witch after they went to a priest or before. But yeah, this idea that all witches think themselves as a sacred priesthood, or that the only true traditions of witchcraft are the modern ones such as Gardnerian or Alexandrian, and that in order to truly understand what witchcraft is, you have to be one of these traditions, and you have to consider yourself of the sacred priesthood. Um, I can respect Gardner and Alex and Maxine and what they were doing and what she's currently doing. Um, and I'm fully aware that not all Wiccan or modern witchcraft initiates have this idea, but there are some really loud voices that do. And I think it does a disservice to the overall history and the culture of witchcraft, because witchcraft isn't a religion, it's a magical practice. Witchcraft is usually used in conjunction with religions, but it's not a religion in and of itself. Now, most of this push comes from those who want the government to recognize witchcraft or Wicca as a religion so they could have their religious rights, because I don't really think the government's going to allow magical practice rights. But honestly, the term witchcraft should be a dead giveaway. It's not witch religion. Um, Now, you have two major stream of thought in this genre or culture, and that is that you have the modern lineal witchcraft traditions, which is Gardnerian, Alexandrian, and also Clan Tubal Cain and Cultus Sabbatai, which the last two never get mentioned amongst anything that was going on or has or is going on within the modern witchcraft movement because of various reasons. Is they don't think they represent witchcraft, or they think that they don't see themselves in the same way that Gardnerians, Alexandrians do, so therefore they're invalid. What's I don't really understand it, because you know as it's been pointed out numerous times by myself and by others, that Hutton himself even said that the information that Tremblay had received preceded Gardner. But apparently, some people in the Alexandria movement don't want to admit this, and that Robert Cochrane was actually well and functioning during the time of Gardner and Alexander's, but he didn't get any attention because what he was proposing was something different, um, not strictly fraternal. Um, but yes, there's this idea that is being pushed with loud voices that, people that consider themselves witches are part of the sacred priesthood. Honestly, I don't consider myself a sacred priest to anything. I'm not interested in it. I don't want to be a priest. Uh, I am a magical practitioner. I'm a spirit worker. by the historical definition, I would be considered a witch. And yes, I admittedly so kind of reclaim that word for myself, but in a different way than these modern movements have done. Um, and I know a lot of people, that don't look at it the way that these loud voices are proclaiming it. There's a lot of historical evidence that witches didn't work the way modern witches do now. Such as I've written on, my book Borax, the Jewel of Midnight, on acquiring the Toad's Boon, becoming a Toad Witch or Toadman. Um, there was old ways of turning into the craft that didn't require fraternal initiation. Um, Fraternal initiation came later, um, but yeah, you try to explain this to these people, show them evidence, so they tell you that you're living in the 13th century. But it's interesting because some of the information that they borrow from comes from the 13th century. So I'm not really understanding why the snideness whenever you say, okay, you're not completely accurate and you're misrepresenting this. And it's the same type of people that go on about other people misrepresenting, but they never consider themselves misrepresenting anything. I guess because they think everything they say is golden, and it's just not true. So, I mean, it's an annoyance, and I really think, people like myself are pushing back on it, or saying, no, wait a minute, there's a lot of dynamic here, there's a lot of diversity. It's not so cut and dry the way you're proclaiming it to be. We don't think ourselves a sacred priesthood outside of those traditions. We don't consider ourselves as witches to be religious. We're magical practitioners. We're spirit workers. Some of us are, religious in other paths, and such as Catholic. Some are pagan. Some are Baptist. What so have you. And it marries for them well, and then people trying to argue with them, well, how do you justify, because the Bible says blah, blah. Well, that's just up to them. That has nothing to do with you, so you should really mind your own damn business. If somebody justifies within themselves to not only be Christian but also practice witchcraft, that's their boat. They're traveling in it. You have no right to sit there and run your stupid cocksucker. And no, I'm not going to pardon my French. So, whatever. But yeah, it's really obnoxious. It's really annoying, and I guess some people say, well, you shouldn't let it bother you too much. Well, of course I shouldn't, but it does. And if I bottle that up and I just keep it inside and don't, say something about it, then it's going to be festering and all that. And, being a public worker, I really think I should put my voice out there and say, hey, no, there's a lot to consider here. There's a lot of history to consider. And there's a lot of diversity and dynamics. And you saying that it's really just this kind of cut and dry is really disingenuous and is misrepresenting a whole swath of cultural beliefs. So, yeah, if you're one of those types of people where you think you're better than others because you're a third degree high priest of whatever, just understand that a lot of us just don't give a shit. We don't. We don't care what you are, what you've done, who you is, all this other crap. We don't care. We're doing our thing. And we're really tired of you guys stepping on our fucking toes. Because, you post something that they don't agree with, they lose their mind, start calling you names, and whenever you start defending yourself, that's whenever they want to open their mouth and say, oh, you're being bullied. No, I was being bullied, now I'm defending myself. And now you're crying, wolf, and all this other garbage. Just understand that a lot of us are really not going to put up with it, and we're tired of it, and we, You want accurate representation of what you're doing? Well, so do we. That's a two-way street. That goes both ways. So if you're tired of people saying, oh, this is what Wiccans do, well, you know what? We're tired of you saying that we are like you guys, and we're not. A lot of us are not. A lot of us are not initiates of Gardnerian or Alexandrian witchcraft or Wicca and all that jive. A lot of us are in other traditions are solitary practitioners, and we really